What I was gonna say is this morning I was listening to a podcast, literally my favorite podcast. Well, I guess after this podcast. It's called My First Million. It's really these two guys talking about businesses they've run and sold and all these niche ideas that they're seeing in the market. And they had a guest on and he asked the question to them, which was, if you had $10 million, how would you live your life differently today compared to what you're doing now? And I mean, you can think about it. For me, I know I would just travel a bunch. Like I would travel a lot. That's the first thing I would do. I don't know if after a while I'd just get burnt out from traveling, but I would travel and just go see everything that I think I want to see in the world and all the people everywhere that I want to see. That would be the first thing that I would do. But I guess the point that he was trying to make was that the lifestyle and the money that you want, it's closer, it's more within reach than you think. Because I guess he was talking to these guys and he's like, they say the things they do when they have $10 million, he's trying to show them that actually you could do that with closer to $1 million. You don't actually need $10 million, which is still a lot of money. But I guess it sort of makes it more attainable, more within reach. But I'd be curious to hear what you guys think.
About what
would you do? How would you live your life differently?
Equally, I would travel myself.
Yeah.
I would literally almost travel every country in the world.
But you'd go on road trips, knowing you.
Well,
I love road trips.
I love road trips.
This guy wakes up and he's like, I'm going to drive to Rwanda and then I'm going to go through Tanzania and then I'll come back through
But that's the only way you experience a place much better. Because airports are such a lie.
That's true.
You fly and land in an airport and then you go to the hotel. You stay within some particular ecosystem. You'll never know what their best foods are, how they build their houses, the most preferred architecture. A day-to-day life, when you're on the road, really, you're meeting people just living their ordinary lives.
I agree with you in that sense. But my counterpoint is, I think the best way to experience any place is to go to a wedding in that place. I've had the privilege of going to weddings in a few different countries, and it's always just... It's a melting pot of all the culture, all the people, the food, all the things that you can think of. It's just right there. And it's like, wow.
That's interesting. But at a wedding, nobody's doing their ordinary day life.
That's true.
You get a lot, but it's arranged. There's a flow to it. Everybody has a plan of how they're going to do it.
It's still
You'll not meet a random guy cycling down the street.
But if you come and attend a show here or something like that, I feel like you're getting some pretty authentic.
Of course. Of course.
What do you think?
If I had definitely travel a bit, do a bit of contemplation, take a break and, think about what's next.
Yeah.
But what's been fascinating me these days is, I don't know if you've heard of search funds and like entrepreneurship through acquisition. So acquire some like traditional businesses and bring tech into it and multiply. So every time somebody asks me, what would you do when you had X amount of money? I always think about like, how can I invest it and grow it through business. Really cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I need to now adjust that question, especially for founders, because I know their mind's going to go to, I would put it in the business and I'd grow another business. Really cool. Okay. Hi, and welcome back to the Full Scale Podcast. I am your host, Adrian Twatwa. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Timothy Mukiti. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing well.
Awesome. We're back for episode 19, if you can believe it. And today we're super excited because we have another guest, a very special guest. We have Sonia joining us today. Sonia is co-founder and director at BuuPass, which is a business that offers hassle-free booking solutions for buses, trains, and flights. BuuPass is on a mission to digitize and organize intercity transport in Africa so that people can live without borders, which I think is such a cool mission. So under her leadership, together with her co-founder, BuuPass has secured $1 million in funding through the Hult Prize award, which is supported by President Bill Clinton, as well as funding from world-renowned venture capitalist Tim Draper. Sonia, it is our absolute pleasure to have you feature on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. Maybe you can just start by briefly introducing yourself to the audience. Who are you? And if you have any sort of quirks or things that you like to do, hobbies, feel free to share.
Yeah. Yes, I'm Sonia. I grew up in India.
Okay.
Actually grew up in a small town in India called Jalgaon. It's like 6 hours from Mumbai. And every time I had to go for a visa appointment or take an international flight. It was like either a bus to Mumbai or a flight or like a train. There's no airport still in my town. So I think growing up, I took a lot of transport, and then I had the privilege of at 15 to move to Hong Kong to study at United World College in Hong Kong, which is an international school. And I think that was the first time I was in a city where transportation was super optimized as well. And then I went to the US, studied in the Midwest there, and that's where I met my co-founder, Wycliffe. And we started BuuPass. BuuPass used to be called MagicBus, and it was a student project. It was like one of those business class presentations that ended up becoming what it is right now, which is kind of crazy when you look back. Starting BuuPass is actually my first official job after college, so don't really have much professional experience apart from this. But entrepreneurship is something that always fascinated me. I started the first entrepreneurship club on campus. Both my parents have their own businesses too, so saw that growing up as well. And when I first came to Nairobi, and it was for BuuPass to do a pilot, actually Nairobi really reminded me of India, like probably like Mumbai 5-10 years ago. And that really excited me because I think around 2014, 2015, the startup space in India was really getting, it was exploding. There were, $100 million, $200 million, $1 billion IPOs, acquisitions happening all over the place. Everybody wanted to be a startup founder. And then I thought that given the similar challenges that emerging markets have, Kenya could be Nairobi could be a good place to seek an opportunity. And transportation was something that both Wycliffe and I were really passionate about because it's what connects people to goods, services, education. So we started to solve this big problem. And being a resident of Nairobi for 6 years now, really, really love it. In my free time, I like to go to Karura. It's one of my favorite places. Like to go on different hikes. Also love dancing as well. Go for some dance classes here. And I've taken the course, and I know you guys like golfing. So I'm not a pretty good golfer yet. I'm doing this training as well. So hope to be a golfer eventually. Yeah.
Please join us. Just before Tim goes into the next question, you went from MagicBus to BuuPass. What was the idea behind MagicBus and also maybe perhaps BuuPass, that name?
Yeah, so the first idea for MagicBus was kind of, I don't want to say stupid, but it was a bit weird. So it was very asset heavy. So what our idea was that, it would be like this bus, which is, when it stops, it becomes a cyber cafe, and we wanted to impact the urban population, especially the ones in slums. And then the bus stations would have internet, and they would have solar power. So it would be a lot of things, but it was not really solving a problem. So when we participated in the Hult Prize first, we pitched this idea, and all the judges were like, "This is not scalable. And what are you trying to solve?" And I think that was the first kind of rejection we got, which made us go back and tweak it. And then we entered using Wildcard in the Hult Prize and eventually won it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Amazing.
Interesting. Okay. Does this name Boo have anything to do with a bus or anything?
Yes.
I think that term is locally used to refer to a
Sheng
bus.
word for bus.
For bus in Kenya. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah. So tell us about BuuPass. You've already touched on it a bit in your introduction, but tell us about BuuPass. What do you guys do? You did mention that initially you advised that you were not solving a problem. So what problem are you solving at the moment? Yeah, just a bit about BuuPass.
I think movement of people and goods is so critical for trade, for tourism, for just connecting economies as well. So that's something that we wanted to solve for. And the problem is that the transportation industry is very undigitized, fragmented, and broken. So transport companies are very offline, manual, and fragmented. Like we focus on the long distance buses, so between cities. And just in Kenya, there are more than 300 bus operators
Okay.
that could take you between cities. Comparing that to, let's say, the US, maybe you can think of 5 or 6 bus operators like Greyhound, Flixbus.
Yeah.
So it's again fragmented market. It's offline. People use pen and paper. Even if you have like 10 different offices all over the country, you wouldn't know how much money you're making. So the bus operators lose a lot of money as well. And on the other hand, even though in a place like Kenya where you can buy almost anything on M-Pesa, you still have an internet penetration is steadily growing. You still have to go all the way to the booking office to book a bus ticket or send a parcel. So we're solving that problem where we are digitizing the transport companies and then connecting them to the end, aggregating it and connecting them to end users.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you mentioned that this is your first job, sort of, I guess, out of school. My question to you was going to be around, like, were you always an entrepreneur? It sounds like the bug caught you maybe through seeing your parents and sort of. Can you explore like why you decided, or why did you already have that drive to start the entrepreneurship club when you were in school? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I think probably a mix of things. So, I read this book called How to Design Your Life, where it talks a lot about, your life could have different pathways. So you could, and this was in my second or first year of college, and you could test out different things on where your life could be. And I was every summer I was doing a different internship. So I did an internship as a research assistant, worked at a corporate as well. I really liked the problem solving part of those aspects. But for example, for research, I don't think I had the patience to be to be a researcher and publish papers. I really like tangible things and seeing impact. And then I did not like the constraints you have when you're working for like a big corporate as well.
Okay.
So I thought, anyway, as a young professional, you have to work so hard. Why not work on something that would multiply later? And even at school, whenever I would I organized a TEDx, for example. So whenever I would get people together, do something, create something, it gave me a lot of joy. So I think all of that just made me get attracted so much towards entrepreneurship.
Really cool. And so it also sounds like being in Hong Kong, seeing how intercity travel can be done way better and optimized, and then getting on this journey with MagicBus, then BuuPass, and then moving to Nairobi and trying to solve that problem here. How did you validate that when you got into the market and sort of trying to find that product market fit? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because we did not start with long distance transport. So we started with the Matatu sector. So when I first moved to Nairobi, I actually lived in Rongai. Because there's quite a lot of universities there and a lot of Matatus there. So we had partnered with the universities, and the students, we had developed like a prototype where they could book a Matatu in advance so that the conductor and driver would know the demand along the route. And the pilot went well. Most of the university students were using it again and again. It was a 3-month pilot. But then, based on that validation and the potential, we got the Hult Prize grant funding as well. But when we came back, we saw that even players like Google and Safaricom, if you remember, Google had Beba Pay, Safaricom had their own tap card. They were not able to crack this market. And it had a lot of stakeholders. The stakeholder map was very wide. And there were some cartels in this market too. So we realized that, we are a small startup. If Google and Safaricom were not able to crack it, maybe we should still be in transportation, but pivot to another segment. And that's how we moved towards long distance market, where it was clear people wanted online bookings. And then we partnered with Easy Coach, which is one of the biggest bus companies in Kenya to do we were their first online booking platform, and it was available on USSD and web. And through that, actually, then we also got the contract with SGR in partnership with Safaricom. So we are the one, we white labeled our solution.
Oh, wow.
For them
wonderful.
as well.
Quick question on that. I mean, you sound like you're solving a very unique problem. Are there, no, we're not trying to plug them, are there other competitors in this space sort of doing what you're doing? And if there are, or even if there aren't, how are you sort of differentiating yourself from whatever exists or whoever is out there?
Yeah. So let me start internationally. Internationally, in every like market, let's say Brazil, India, Southeast Asia, you would see a local player who's doing something like that.
Yeah.
So, there's like Red Bus in India, which got acquired by Naspers in South Africa, interestingly, back in 2015. And that was also another reason why we got interested in the transportation space too. And so we took inspiration from that, but used first principles to solve for the local market here. And locally, is there competition? I would say competition is still status quo. 90% of bookings are still very manual. There are some players who have tried to license tech from outside, but we have been very intentional for building for the market.
Yeah.
So most of our tech team is in-house in Nairobi, and we work very closely with the customer. So that's why we have been able to build something that people want and scale through, building a good product.
Super cool. Building for the market itself and bringing people who understand the problem and building it from the ground up, as opposed to just importing the tech and trying to replicate that system.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Wow. Yeah. Actually, something that is standing out from how you're describing your journey with BuuPass is how you've been able to pivot, innovate as you go, change your target customer or client as fast as possible. Because I think you've done it for about 5 years now.
Almost getting to 6.5 years now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
years,
and you seem like you've quickly been innovating and changing, which is quite impressive. Now, on to, the biggest enabler of startups and entrepreneurial journeys. How has your journey been in terms of funding and investment? How has the journey looked like from the very onset up to where you are now?
Yeah. Before I go into it, I would say revenue is the best source of funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So try to get that as early as possible. But how has the journey been? So I think we have been very lucky to get the grant funding early on through the Hult Prize, which was pretty high for like an early stage startup. It was $1 million. And through that, we were able to validate the market, and we even reached break even in 2020. 2017, 2018, we got a few bus companies. We got the SGR contract, started making quite some revenue. And then 2019, we had like almost 20% month-on-month growth. 2020 is when we were supposed to raise money, but then COVID hit. No people were moving. In Kenya, especially, there was a ban to move between counties, right?
Yes.
So we had almost zero revenue. So we barely survived somehow, but it really helped us think about our operations in a much more efficient manner. And we also got into parcel space as well with the bus companies, because, most of these buses also carry parcel too. So when things started opening up in 2021, 2022 is when we then went to get equity funding. But then that's when the markets went bad. So 2020 was a good time to raise funding if you were not in transportation space, I guess, or like long distance travel space. So it was definitely difficult because when you're kind of almost bootstrapping, you think of your business in a much more grounded manner. So you think of like profitability, how can you be more efficient? But and we went for angels and VCs, that's when you need to then paint the big vision of what this could become, how big this could become. Because in the end, you're taking their money and then you need to give them a return as well. So we really had to start thinking about what's the future of BuuPass and how do we build that narrative. And we had the numbers to back us up, but I think we were not that confident. So I actually talked to quite a lot of different entrepreneurs. There's this community called Women Who Build Africa, where there were women entrepreneurs who helped me make my pitch better. And after that, I think once the narrative was good, because I think we had the numbers to back us, we were able to close $1.3 million with a mix of investors from Africa, but also from outside too. So we got some funding from the US, Europe, and India as well.
In equity? That was in equity, yeah?
Equity, yeah. So it was our pre-seed round, and currently we are closing our current round as well.
A seed round? Or?
A seed round, yeah. Okay. So I think now, but now that the market has become more, they're calling it the funding winter, although I think it's supposed to get better.
Yeah.
even the investors' questions have changed. Like before it was, how big can this become? Can this be $1 trillion business? But now it's, what are your unit economics? When are you reaching profitability? Are your costs, under control? So
That's fascinating.
It's fascinating to see that as well. Yeah.
And we had another guest on the show, Collins, who mentioned when one of the trends he's seeing was that he thinks people are going to look more for profitability when they're actually investing in companies.
Yeah.
Not all these other soft metrics. It's more, are you profitable? When are you going to be able to get profitable?
Yeah.
Very fascinating. Good to see that. Also, that aligns with what you're seeing.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up question, actually, on the funding, how big is your ticket side for seed funding? How much are you fundraising for?
So we're raising $2 million. We're almost
okay.
done with it. Yeah, almost like 90% done.
Awesome. Congrats.
If somebody sees the podcast and is interested, they can reach out.
They can reach out and finance some more. All of it in equity or some in debt?
No, all equity.
All equity. Okay.
Got you. I think you've mentioned some very cool things. One is Women Who Build Africa. It sounds like a really cool organization or group of people. So please check that out. I think that sounds very interesting. Also, sort of scaling or pivoting into parcels as a new vertical to continue moving the business forward. The Hult Prize, I mean, I'm sure you've also spoken about this sort of at length on different platforms, but maybe just a real quick one on like what that was, what it was like. How did you get, do you just apply? Like, how does that work? Just for people who've never experienced going through a grant process and just getting into that.
Yeah. So actually we found out about the Hult Prize through the entrepreneurship club we had started on campus. So I had subscribed to a newsletter where there were opportunities and one of them was the Hult Prize. So we're like, okay, let's apply. And what really made me interested about it was that it focused on creating impact through profitable businesses. So it was not just, like business for the sake of business or impact through like NGOs and stuff, but merging that together. So it was a social entrepreneurship competition. And it's if you're a student, you can participate in it. It's still ongoing. It has a great portfolio of companies. And every year they give out a challenge and then you answer that challenge using a business idea.
Wow.
Yeah. So that year the challenge was, how do you better connect people to goods and services and increase their income?
Wow.
And our solution was that transportation is literally how you connect people to goods and services, and better transport means, eventually better income, both for people within the transport sector and the ones using it as well.
Wow. It sounds like you've been answering that challenge ever
Exactly.
since. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was a very timely, sort of competition for you.
Yeah, very much.
Especially that you've already thought about the idea and how you solve problems through transport.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just a quick one on scaling. Like for you, what contributed to the growth of the business from, where it was when you first came here, started doing pilot programs to where the business is now? What has contributed to that growth? And I'm sure there were challenges as you were scaling. What were those and sort of how did you manage them?
Yeah, I think it's different stages of business, right? So like when we were trying to get from 0 to 1,000 people booking on our platform, very different strategies than where we are at now, where we now even acquired a competitor as well.
Wow.
Something I wouldn't have thought of back when we started. So when we first got started, we wanted to really first understand the customer pain points and test out in the leanest manner. So even the way we built our first prototype, we just got some consultants to help us do it, and then really sit with the customers. So like my team and I, just like 4 or 5 people, we used to be at the Easy Coach bus park every day, just gathering data, gathering feedback. And that really helped us create a product, which then grew through referrals as well as on the ground, like customer education at different bus parks. So I think that's what even then created that validation where when the SGR opportunity came through, actually one of our customers from Easy Coach tweeted at Safaricom that, hey, why don't you partner with BuuPass and provide SGR ticketing, because there's no ticket. Everybody thought there would be a ticketing platform, and SGR got launched, but there was none.
Yeah.
And interestingly, one of the judges for the Hult Prize was the late Bob Colomo.
Oh, okay.
So he was a mentor to us. And then we went to him, we told him we have a proof of concept. People want it, and we can build it for Kenya Railways too. And that's how we partnered. Because back then we were we're a small team. We knew we won't be able to take on a huge contract like that. So I would say partnerships is another big way where we scaled as well. And then lastly, I think product diversification, but within the same vertical. So also, for example, getting into parcels, or we were primarily focused on B2C, so booking platform for passengers. But then we saw that the big problem was with bus companies too. So we built a SaaS and point of sale for them to automate their back office. And that really scaled us up too. And I think this year, one of the ways we scaled was the acquisition. So we acquired QuickBus, which opened up South Africa for us. So now we are in Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing growth.
Yeah, an impressive journey so far. Actually, just to take it back now to the conversation we were having about financing, where you mentioned that revenue is your best sort of finance. So have you turned, at what point did you turn revenue positive? And then at what point did you become profitable? How has that journey been? Briefly about that journey.
Yeah, so since we launched with Easy Coach in 2018, early 2018. And I think in 6 months, we had a commercial contract because we were doing pilot with them. And then a few months later, we got the SGR contract too. So I think between 6 to 8 months, we started making our first few dollars. Took us almost 3 years to break even. And this is considering the $1 million we had from the Hult Prize too. So 3 to 4 years. So 2020, 2021 is when we reached break even. And it was, but then it was like, when we had zero revenue, then we came back again. 2021, 2022 is when we started making revenue again. So it was like BuuPass version 2 for us. And we were profitable until we raised our pre-seed round, where we then now use that money for growth. Yeah.
Wow. Seems like an exciting journey so far. It's been good for you. Now, there's a question we've been asking our guests, and we would want to know what you take it. What has been your worst mistake that you've made as an entrepreneur or a founder so far? Or in the alternative, what has been the toughest decision you've had to make?
I think the worst mistake was not going with the gut feeling, especially when you're hiring. So I think early on, we were focusing quite a lot on the skills somebody had and not the culture fit. But especially when you're hiring the first few people in your company, it's important that they're aligned with you, your mission, and what your company stands for. And that was that just like made us waste time. It was mentally exhausting, and it affected other people in our team too. Yeah. Sorry, what was your second question?
I mean, the second one was the toughest decision you've had to make.
As an
entrepreneur so far.
Wow, so many of them. Toughest decision? Yes. So when COVID started, when there was like the first case here in Kenya, my co-founder Wycliffe and I came up with a plan based on how much money we have in the bank and how much like our industry gets affected. This is how we are going to reduce salaries and probably do some layoffs as well.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a small team, I think you get personally involved with the team too. They become your community as well. So that was definitely very tough as well. But the good thing is we didn't have to lay off too many people, and the ones we laid off, they came back after the market opened up too. Yeah.
It's really fascinating listening to founders' journeys, because there's always a segment where they talk about what happened in COVID.
Exactly.
And it sounds like it's a real like baptism by fire. It's a real onslaught of all these problems, and seeing how they navigated through it and came out on the other side is always really remarkable. So also thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I guess along that theme of lessons learned along the way, it sounds like you've already discussed some of the biggest ones, but if you had to choose or a biggest or most important lesson that you've learned in this journey, it could be the culture one. But if you had something else, is there a different one, or is that what you'd consider the biggest or most important lesson you've learned in this journey so far?
I think if I were to choose, the biggest lesson would be that I think, and in the end, it's like you and probably your co-founder who'd be the last people standing. So a lot of it is you can hire the best people, you can have the best investors, but in the end, it's your responsibility to keep the business alive, to grow it as well. So it's not, you don't get a break from that, right? So I think just knowing that you need to show up you need to practice your leadership and make decisions, keeping that in mind. Yeah.
And it's your baby, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna live with it no matter what. Okay.
And what would you say has been your highest moment in your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, all the fundraising and stuff has been great, but I remember that when we most recently, the highest moment has been when we closed 2 big bus operators in Kenya, and then they really saw a positive impact in their business using our product, to a point that even if there's a 5-minute downtime, that they get so nervous and angry at us. So I think that was kind of a validation. So I think every time we have such customer stories, that definitely brings joy.
Yeah, that's also a thing we keep seeing. People seeing the impact that their work is doing. And in many ways, it's also your legacy. It's what people are going to sort of have even after you leave the business or whatever. It's sort of something that's long lasting. Awesome. I guess from your experiences so far, are there, it could be 3 things, it could be any number of things, but what do you consider extremely important for the success of a startup or an entrepreneurial venture? What are those key things for you?
I think the first one is, as the founder, are you passionate about the problem? Because it's not a short journey. And especially in this market, it's not. Usually, if you are thinking of an exits happen between 10 to 15 years.
Yep.
It's not the Silicon Valley where, maybe it'll happen in 3-4 years. So you need to be passionate about what you're doing. Second one is, I would say, don't be too attached to the product you have developed, but the problem, try to be passionate about the problem instead. Because a lot of times you might have spent so many hours coding and building that product, but it just doesn't work, the market just doesn't want it. So that's the second one. And thirdly is build a great team around you. So, try to hire people who are smarter than you, who align with your vision, and who can help you get to your milestones and where you want to be much faster. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Actually, I like what you've said about being attached to the solution that you're providing as opposed to the product. And that actually ties to a conversation we had, Adrian and I had, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd episode, where we were discussing data on why many startups fail. And one of the bigger problem was when a founder is so attached they have such an attachment with the business that they are doing that they're not willing to see when it's about to fail. So they're not trying to change, they're not pivoting. Maybe you could still be working so hard trying to solve the problem in Rongai for university students around that place, and it wouldn't be working, but you're so invested in it that you don't see an opportunity to pivot and perhaps do better.
MagicBus, right?
Maybe you would be so invested in MagicBus that BuuPass will not be here.
It did sound magical though.
Yeah.
In your defense.
Yeah, complete with
Wi-Fi. Sounded really cool.
Sounds interesting. So tell us about your, what is your long-term vision, and are you planning an exit at one point or the other?
So exit, right? Yeah. So, something we have been thinking about, but I think in the end, we want to build a great business, right? And that's something that's sustainable, that's robust, and that can run on its, it becomes profitable again. And what I believe is great businesses are, bought, not sold. So if we are hitting the right metrics, if we are building value for the customers and showing high growth while maintaining good unit economics and reaching break even, I think we'll get. We have already gotten a bit of interest in the market before, but we think we can become much bigger. Our vision is to become this Pan-African platform that connects people. And but at the same time, having said that, we do have investors and who expect returns. We're also giving away ESOP to our employees too.
Okay.
And I think I personally would like to see our employees create wealth because they dedicated so much time to BuuPass. So it could be, I think in this market, it could be an acquisition, for example, or I don't know, there haven't been as many successful IPOs yet, or like a place where you can list locally, which as a group of companies. So I think maybe that might be the most probable one. But I think either way, we are dedicated to building a business that's like robust and sustainable.
Because on that, actually, you mentioned sort of going Pan-African. My next question to you was about your vision for the long term, 5, 10, 20 years from now. Where do you see the company? Where do you see BuuPass?
BuuPass will become, what we call it, Stripe meets Expedia for the transportation market.
Okay.
So we would have digitized transportation market, have a great market share, and are in key markets and key corridors on the continent. And given the growth that's happening on the continent, the policies that are being placed, like the Africa Free Trade Agreement, for example, I think we would become the infrastructure then that connects people and goods. So that's what BuuPass wants to become.
Awesome. And we wish you all the best.
Sounds like a world of opportunities, honestly.
It sounds like they're gonna go full scale.
Exactly.
So just, I guess, one last serious-ish question is on just industry and ecosystem insight. So we're always curious when a founder sits in the chair, like, as someone who's at the forefront of developing, innovating, and changing the way things are happening on the continent, are there any trends that you're seeing in the startup ecosystem that perhaps excite you or maybe don't excite you? And also maybe how do you see the landscape changing in terms of maybe investment? It sounds like we already touched on one of those in terms of how investors are viewing companies. But any trends you're seeing or how the landscape will change?
I mean, I think whenever an economic downturn or like a funding winter happens, I think the companies that survive are going to be the next big company. So that excites me. Because, you have the resilience, you've been through bad times. So I feel like in the next few years, we are going to see some great stories of both people expanding, growing, and maybe hopefully great exits too. So, I mean, just a story like yesterday, there was a panel about exits, and the only story people were talking about was Paystack. And Paystack happened
that's
so many years ago. I mean, I love the Paystack story, but I was thinking like we need more of such stories, right? And also, especially in Kenya, we need more of that too, because yes, funding has reduced, but also investors are not getting their returns either. So I would like to see more exits too. And I think last thing, just a prediction that I have, is that with the advent of AI and just doing things becoming more cheaper, like now you don't need to hire a copywriter, for example, or you don't need to, you can just do everything with AI. I think teams are going to get leaner. And it will be much easier to run like a lean, profitable business at scale.
Awesome, fascinating. I'm here for it. We have a few like lighter segments to close out the show. First one, lighter, I'd say, but I think of it as more inspirational. So we're putting together this time capsule for the founders of the future, and our question to you is: if we were to transport you into the future and we'd put you in a room full of the next generation of founders, the next Sonias who are going to build the BuuPass of the future and all these other phenomenal companies, and they're going to start that mission literally tomorrow, what's the one thing that you would say to them?
Like be ready for I think same thing I was saying, like be ready for a long-term commitment and don't be in it for the clout or the fame, but it's going to be one of the hardest, but the most rewarding thing you're going to do in your life.
Amazing.
Interesting.
Amazing. I always find these so profound.
And I'm glad that you let people know it will be hard and but rewarding at the same time. Okay. And I do have a surprise question for you. So tell us, if you were to have a superpower, what superpower would you want to have? And why would you want to have that superpower?
right now,
Yeah.
I think if I can like be great, have the superpower to persuade anybody to, investors,
Yep.
customers. If there's a superpower to just convince everyone, I would
Yeah.
love to have that. Then it would just make my life
The power
easier.
of persuasion.
The power of persuasion.
So
yes.
you basically would want to just look at a potential investor, and you answer all their questions and explain it in a second.
Before they even ask.
Yeah, before they even ask.
They're like,
And then
take my money.
they're like, take my money. I already see where this is going. And equally
like
customers
that.
as well. Well, I
Yeah.
see. Well, she has responded in terms of her pressing point now. Like you're raising seed capital, and you're also looking to expand. I mean, those are the biggest concerns that you have now. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Again, we usually have this fun segment where we basically have a conversation about an interesting thing we have learned in the course of the week, or something we have encountered, and I wanted you to let us know what has been the interesting thing that you've learned this week or discovered this week.
Because there were like so many conferences, there were so many things I learned, but yeah, one interesting thing I learned this week was there's something called the 2X challenge, which basically has committed multi-billion dollars, I think around $7 to $10 billion for funding, for gender lens funding. So funding both women-owned businesses, but also businesses that impact women as customers in the supply chain.
Okay.
However, only 10% of it comes to the continent, and not all of it goes to women-owned businesses too. So it's called the gender lens funding paradox, where there's so much money, it's been committed to women, but like why aren't we seeing it?
Yeah, the businesses are not there.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. Very cool. I mean, it sounds like at least you're a business that's within the realm, or that's well positioned for this type of funding. Are there any ways, I mean, other than just have more women sort of starting businesses or hiring more women and incorporating them in their business structures? Are there ways that you've seen or that you heard on the panels on ways that we can improve on that or reduce that challenge or that delta?
Yeah. I think it's also about like, a lot of it is it's like a technical solution, like, you need 50% women in your business, but why are you doing it? Like, for example, for BuuPass, being a tech business, it's been difficult to get affordable female tech talent. Especially tech talent already is, it's difficult to get. And then I think a lot of female tech talent would rather go to Microsoft or Google, who can pay them like 5 times more.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a systemic issue. So we're talking about that. And secondly, also, how do we create a culture within the startup ecosystem which is more open for women? Because for the longest time, it's been like VC bros, tech bros, finance bros. How do we move away from that bro culture and make it more open so it's more comfortable for women?
We want it to become Texas.
Looking for a man in finance. Okay. Cool one. Thank you. Do you want to go or should I go? Since you started off the segment.
Please let us know your interesting thing of the week.
Cool, because you're going to close us out anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So my interesting thing of the week, I'm always fascinated by these stories of Warren Buffett and like stories and things that he says or his investment thesis and all that. So he was asked, apparently he was giving a talk to a group of students, and he asked them, if you could pick one student in the classroom and you could have 10% of their lifetime future earnings, who would you pick in the room and why? And I thought it was such an interesting question. And I think back to like when I was in college, like if I had been asked this question, who would I have picked? Probably like the valedictorian or someone super smart, because I think they're going to do really well, which he actually is doing really well, from the valedictorian from my year. But he says, I guess Buffett's criteria is 3 things. And he uses this as a proxy for people you'd want to work with or people that you should have working with you or your co-founder, that type of thing. Integrity, intelligence, and energy. And he says integrity is by far for him the most important one. He says intelligence and energy, those are things that sort of you can fluctuate or you can deal around them, but integrity was the absolute number one. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I also wanted, I guess, to check in with you, Sonia, as a business co-founder. one, would you, I mean, it sounds like you picked Wycliffe. If you were to go back and actually pick someone to share or to take future earnings from, but how are those things that have sort of played into your decision making when you're picking the people you work with? And just to say, for me, who works with Tim on a day-to-day basis, I think Tim is a stand-up guy. I think he's sharp, and I think he brings good vibes and good energy. So I feel like I'm actually working with someone who qualifies in all three parts.
All three.
So so don't ever get cancelled, because then they'll look back and they'll be like, what was he talking about?
No. I don't think we'll ever have integrity. Okay. But before even Sonia speaks, as you're speaking, because I've been reflecting on how to build. So for context, I'm a founding partner of a law firm that does it's a corporate commercial law firm, and one of the things I've been thinking about is growing the team, and what really would be that thing that makes me say, once you've had a conversation with you, maybe and you've actually even touched on it when you said sometimes when you're hiring, you go for the shiny, but there are particular factors that you may miss out that are extremely crucial. And I've been thinking about what are those things if we'll sit through an interview and have a conversation, if you tick the boxes, I'm like, we are going to work together. What are those things? Yeah. And I'm glad that you've said that, because it's a validation, because I've been thinking along those lines. So I think that's a good one. But I'll actually read more about that so that I know. I know basically how to build teams that add value and sustain your business. Sorry, you were to say something about your experience as well around those three.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with them, because especially as a startup founder, you can't be always present, micromanaging. So integrity is so important. But one of the other things I look for is when things are nice and it's good vibes and stuff, it's nice. But when things are difficult is when you can test the relationship. And can I bring up difficult conversations and difficult topics with this person? So it's been great to have a co-founder with Wycliffe, where we have been very transparent about it, but also with other, team members as well. Because a lot of times I think, do they have that self-awareness to not take things personally, but take, constructive feedback, but also give it as well, because we don't want people just to make the bosses happy either. So that's very important for us.
Awesome. Well. Fantastic.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So my interesting thing of the week is I stumbled upon a video of the late Miles Monroe. He was a renowned speaker on leadership, building success, and a lot of other things. I don't know whether you're familiar with Miles. So I stumbled upon a clip, and he was saying, and even posted it on my Instagram. And the clip was that when God gives you a vision, he does not necessarily tell you what the process to getting there is like. And the process is usually more difficult and challenging than you can ever imagine. And I think it's equally the way the journey of an entrepreneur, where you see something in the future and it looks beautiful and exciting, but in between there are days you'll wonder whether you'll survive one more day. There are those days you'll have to struggle to try and win a client. There are those days that a payment will delay, and then all things are looking like they're tied around it. But what was from that conversation, it was the statement was that if we all could see how the journey is likely to be to the place we desire to go, a lot of us will never start the first step, because it looks so difficult, it looks so challenging. Yet when you go through the process and you achieve the final outcome, it looks so glorious and beautiful. So that's my interesting thing of the week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And my inspiration for the week.
Oh.
Thank you. Yeah,
you should become an entrepreneur.
Sorry, right before you close us out, Sonia, I just wanted to ask, if people wanted to learn more about you or about BuuPass, are there any, where should they find you or the business online? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Sonia Kabra, and BuuPass. Our website is BuuPass.com. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn,
X, as we were reminded
and
recently.
X. And if you're booking anything for your December travels, please use BuuPass.
Awesome.
Nice.
Please do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us for this conversation. I mean, we've gleaned a lot of nuggets, and we're certain that our audience will learn a lot from this conversation. And we wish BuuPass well and your entrepreneurial ventures, even as you scale into other jurisdictions. You've already gone into South Africa, and we guess still have plans to expand into more jurisdictions in Africa. So we're wishing you well. Thank you to our audience for joining us for this conversation. We've had a chat with Sonia, who has shared nuggets I'm sure you've appreciated. Leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you have a further question you'd want to channel through to Sonia, please let us know, and we'll be happy to send the question to her to provide feedback or maybe guidance. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Be on the lookout as well for the weekly challenge that will be coming to you this coming weekend. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to your feedback, and see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.